Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the latest episode of the House of Leigh. Thanks for joining us again at this madhouse that we have got with Josh McAllister and our rugby editor Matt Shaw joining us again. Looking smart this week, Matthew. Wearing no shorts on. Stuck a jacket on.
I got told that the viewing figures were too high last week, so we've got to bring them back to normal.
The temperatures are rising enough. We don't need your legs out to send it soaring.
Was essentially the polite message that I got. I think it was full of lies, but we did have a good show last week, so
we did.
This does seem very coincidental.
We did. I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, you've got Josh sat next to you, so it kind of counterbalances.
I can pull these up if you want.
No, please don't. Please don't. Lots to get through this week. Again, it's been a really eventful weekend, if you will, long weekend in Super League. A little busy last week as well with stuff to get through. Where I want to get started with us this week is the grand final. It's not actually a lock-in. Now, I'm saying that with a little bit of a surprise tone, but a lot of people were kind of saying, well, listen, Wigan will get there, and then throughout the season, it's like, well, Hull Kingston Rovers are going to get there. It's just the top two and then everybody else. And then you were saying, well, Leeds are in the conversation. You know, they're below Wigan and Hull KR, but they're not that far below. They're in that next group. And now we've had Leigh beat Wigan for the second time this season, sitting in fourth. They'll fancy the chances. They'll be sniffing a run to Old Trafford. It looks really exciting. Leeds obviously winning at the weekend at Craven Park, becoming only the second team in over a calendar year to beat Hull Kingston Rovers. Really excited about the last 10 games that we're heading into now, and it's not a lock-in. That's great for the competition.
Great for that. I think it was a good round of results really for the competition in terms of narratives and everything like that. So, listen, with Leeds, you know where I've been with them all year. I think maybe now people will start to take notice. Will start to take notice of them and how good they are, and they are a very good team. And I think as well a timely little warning for LKR. I don't think complacency's crept in. I think off the back of the Challenge Cup we saw that they were still keen, still very focused, and everything like that. But sometimes just getting punched in the nose can be a good thing, can't it?
Yeah, I know.
They'll be annoyed that they've missed out on the opportunity to go 6 points clear, though.
They will be annoyed, but every team has an off day throughout the season.
They were off.
But they're off a little bit in that they bombed a couple of chances. They maybe weren't as clinical as they would like to be or have been at times. I don't want to discredit Leeds. Yeah. Leeds, deserve the victory. I'm just saying they'll be smart in that they maybe didn't execute how they can.
Yeah, because if they'd have taken the 3 chances they had, and 2 of them, all 3 really, they should score. They're looking at least being 20-0 up at half-time, which wouldn't have been a fair reflection of the game. 8-0 was probably about right. Listen, all the credit in the world to Leeds for me. They were more than deserving of that win. They were brilliant in the second half. And do we all agree they're contenders now? Are you finally going to agree with Josh?
I was going to say, let's bring Josh in because he's not just sat there for his stunning good looks, Joshua. Talk to us. Leeds contenders?
Yeah, genuine contenders, and Matt's been saying it for a while, and obviously...
No, don't put that...
Josh, just say it. Josh, let's just stop.
I think his pre-season prediction was they finished third, and he always had faith in them. Now, I think the conversation is real that they are genuine contenders, and that they can, on the day, as we saw against Hull KR, competing against Wigan and Hull KR. I think there could even be an argument for that second place spot. Leeds closing the gap on Wigan. I think Hull KR have got a fair advantage at the top at the minute, but if you're Wigan, you wanted to get some performances and wins together because the second spot obviously is huge in a semi-final tie, a home semi-final tie, sorry.
So in summary, can you just speak down the mic and go, Matt, you were right?
Matt had some right predictions at the start of the season, but you throw enough darts. As the saying goes.
Come on. Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
What is it about Leeds, Matt, that you saw at the start of the season, but you're even more convinced now? Is it the more consistent, but is it the fact, for me, in many ways, they don't get bored. And what I mean is they don't get bored of just playing with a real structure that gets them results. Some teams, can get away from that plan. I think when Brad Hartford's got a plan in place, they don't get bored of it. They will stick to it and they'll stay in the fight till they can get over the line. I like that about them because I haven't seen that in the last couple of years. So I like that progression. I'm not saying that's the exciting thing about them. What I'm saying is that's what I like about them. What is it that you like about them?
I like that they don't try and take shortcuts anymore. I thought under Rowan Smith they tried to play trick books to get out of trouble.
Some of it was a little harebrained ideas.
Yeah, well, it was. I think I used to say it. Under Rowan Smith, they would always be in contention for try of the season and fill the highlight reels, but they won't win proper trophies. I think they've got a real nice balance now of that extravagant play, but they do it at the right times. They pick the moments now, as proven by that absolutely sensational winner on Sunday. And let's be right, that was an awesome try. That's try of the season for me. And to be honest, I think Lockie Miller epitomises everything that I've liked about Leeds this year. Everyone knows I wasn't a Lockie Miller fan last year. He infuriated me to watch. His defence was all over the place. He was never in the right position. Coming into attacks, he was never in the right place. However, he'd throw that one over the top ball or he'd beat a few men off a kick return and everyone would be raving about him. And I thought, but this is the problem. That everyone's looking at the flashy bits, but not the bits that win you matches. And he's completely evolved his game. Defensively, he's miles better. He picks his moments way better. I think he is basically everything in a player that reflects the overall improvement of Leeds Rhinos as a team and the tough as through the middle. How often have I said I think Hull KR have the best pack in the comp? Mm-hmm. Leeds' pack were better than Hull KR's pack on Sunday, and I haven't seen that happen very often at all. Aledzki was great. Palacia was fantastic at the start. Lasoni came on and completely changed the game. Holroyd got to grips with it. They were so good. They've got a chance of being in the grand final, Smelsy.
Just to add to that, there is more of a structure around Leeds, and I'm not sure if Brad Arthur calls it boring rugby or sometimes we call it, or I call it boring rugby, but they're now playing that style of rugby to earn the right to play, whereas under Rowan Smith, they weren't earning that right. As you said, they were just throwing the ball around, and yeah, it looks good in a highlight reel, but for 80 minutes and consistently and competing, it's not up there. Now they're earning the right, and then when they get the chances, that's when they strike. There's lots more structure, and Brad Arthur's made a real big impact, and obviously the big question is keeping him and him keeping them. I think was it 6 out of 10 he rated his chances to stay there now. Obviously that's the big question is his future, and he said that the players are making it hard for him to make a decision. Well, I think after that win it'll be even harder now. I'm
going to stay away from that for now just because I feel
I'm bored.
You've said the words out of my mouth. I'm quite bored of the Brad Arthur scenario at the minute. I'd rather just dig a little bit more into Leeds just quickly before we move on. Jake Connor obviously leading the Man of Steel, and is it helping in some ways that people are looking at Jake Connor, that other teams are looking at Jake Connor, but they've got so many more threats, Leeds. They're much more than just Jake Connor's having a wow of a season. Mm-hmm. They've, like you said, through the middle, not many teams have done that to Hull Kingston Rovers this season at all. You think possibly Warrington in the cup final did, but you're not putting many names down on that team sheet. Out wide, they've got threats. They've scored some really attractive tries. Does the Jake Connor factor? One, it helps him because he's playing really well, but two, that he becomes the target in many ways for a lot of oppositions, which just allows some of the others to do what they're doing, like Lockie Miller did at the weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Watkins is playing really well. Even Harry Newman, I thought had a pretty steady start to the year, but I think he's come on. Handley looks dangerous. They looked really good down the left edge. They were making numbers every single time. They're a good team, Smelsy.
We've just listed some really good players.
I just think they're a good team, and I think they've gone under the radar all year, but they won't do now.
So on that, definitely, I think we're all in agreement, that Leeds are certainly in that shout for the grand final. What about Leigh in fourth place? A little bit more ground to make up if they wanted to try and push for the top two, but at the minute they'll be concerning themselves with securing a top four place first of all, given the fact they've got St Helens breathing down the necks, and then beyond them, Wakefield. What do we think about Leigh? Because we've sat here in recent weeks, so not too distant past, and said the consistency is a little bit of an issue. They've been rocks and diamonds. Where do we see them now? On the back of winning the Battle of the Borough for the second time this season.
Yeah, huge win in front of a record crowd as well, a record crowd for Leigh in Super League. I have all faith that they make the semi-final or make semi-finals, and that could be via because they finished fourth in them. But I just can't see them. I don't think they have enough in them to make a grand final. I don't think yet. I have not been convinced yet, just because of the consistency. Now, it was a really good performance against Wigan. They do that for the next 11 weeks, or if the final 7 or 8 weeks, then I'll change my mind and I'll be convinced. But in terms of consistency, they've not been there yet. And as you said, they've not been up there competing week in, week out. I have to say Bailey Hodgson was fantastic in David Armstrong's absence. I think every time Bailey Hodgson's played, he's been brilliant. Great replacement. I think that's a big headache when Armstrong comes back, because Hodgson's putting his name forward for that fullback role permanently. I just don't see the consistency enough to be competing for a grand final yet. I think it's open up to a 3 race, Leeds, KR, Wigan for a grand final. Not quite sure Leigh are up there with them 3 just yet.
I disagree with Josh to a degree in that I'm not convinced they will make a semi-final, because I think they're capable of losing to teams below them in the league. I think they could quite easily lose to St Helens, Wakefield, Hull, Warrington if they sneak in. But if they were to make a semi-final, I won't be writing them off, because, and I've said this a couple of times, I think every team plays 10 out of 10. I've probably got Leigh third. I think KR and Wigan would still be the 2, but I think at absolute top performance levels, I think Leigh are better than Leeds. But Leeds are Leeds are in 8 out of 10 most weeks.
Yeah.
Leigh are 9, then 5, then 6, and then that's the issue with Leigh. So I agree with your last point about, I think Leeds have earned the right to maybe jump into the top 3 rather than it be 1 and 2, then 3 and 4. But yeah, Leigh's issue is they could, and they will, based on what we've seen, lose daft ones, and in the playoffs it wouldn't be a shock if they were lose at home based on the evidence.
It'd be interesting to have this conversation next week in many ways around Leigh, actually around Leeds as well, because Leeds are at home to St Helens, which we'll discuss in our preview show, but that looks a cracker on paper as it is at the minute. And Leigh are playing Hull Kingston Rovers.
Without Mikey Lewis.
So, that's interesting as well.
What did you make of this Mikey Lewis incident?
Yeah, let's touch on that real quick and then we'll come back. I didn't get it at the time. It didn't look too bad a shot.
He made a meal of it. Let's be frank. He made a meal of it because he knew that you could get a penalty. They challenged it and he knew there was some contact. The initial contact was around the shoulder. He knew that there was then some on the neck. He made a meal of it and he won the penalty.
Do you think it was 100% he made a meal of it? Do you think there was anything in it where he's made a little bit more of it than it was, but there was some issue there? Or do you think there was literally no issue there at all and he's basically tried to...
He'd have had hundreds of hits harder than that and probably got up from it.
Yeah.
I think he's made a meal of it to win a penalty.
I think it's going to potentially be costly.
I don't believe for a minute. I do not believe for a minute that he had HIA symptoms off the back of that. I think, and this was my first reaction, and I've watched it again and I think it, because he goes down, doesn't he, and he stays down and he's pretty motionless on the floor. Yeah. I think the doctors will have failed him on the fact... Because
he was laid motionless on the floor.
And they can do category 1. It's a category 1 failure, essentially. They can get you on visuals. So we've seen it in the past where a player's looks to be clearly knocked out, or their eyes rolling back of their head, or if they run back and they're all over the place, or if a player stays down, they get failed. I think it happened to... I seem to remember it happening to Aidan Caesar when he was at Leeds before, when they beat Wigan in a semi-final. I seem to recall. So I'm convinced that's why he got failed. Now, if that's the case, and if you go down the was he making a meal of it, you've got to think that Hull KR and Willie Peters are going to be absolutely fuming with him.
I think that's an understatement. If that is the case, I think the full
we'll never know
No.
because no one's going to come out and say it. But
This is a stretch of an argument, but if that's true and they failed him because he stayed still, Julian Sember stayed still during the grand final.
and this is the counter
that would be
argument.
exactly
and
that,
there
he
was,
would be miffed.
And I think we could probably do with some clarity on this because I think there was even one in the Hull FC Saints game this week with Owen Dagnall, who stayed down for a period, but he didn't fail.
No, he passed.
So there's a bit. So there's probably this might be a little bit more complex than we realise, but and maybe there were some symptoms there. But Mikey Lewis was out in his tracksuit in the second half, running up and down the touchline, shouting and cheering everyone on. He didn't look like a man suffering with concussion symptoms to me.
No, and ultimately they've lost that game, and now they've got to go to Leigh without him.
And look, Leigh proved why they're fourth, why they're a top 14 by beating Wigan. And they are absolutely capable of beating Hull KR with Mikey Lewis. They're capable. It comes back to the consistency.
Just to finish off on this subject, I know we've stayed on it a little bit, but I think there's a lot to go at. In terms of Wigan, and we've had this conversation before, and Josh did a really good piece, much as it pains me to say it, on All Out Rugby League over the weekend about the fact that, listen, just when it comes to the big games, Wigan know what they've got to do, and you shouldn't panic.
You want that good?
No. And ultimately, they've lost.
Bring me back down a little.
They've lost to Wakefield, who are a good side, and they've lost to Leigh, who, as you've just said, are a very good side, and that's it. I know they stuttered a little bit in other games and against Huddersfield, but they got the wins. They've only lost them 2 matches. Where are we at with them? Because as I keep saying, my issue is, you guys, well in your right to say, they've got it in the locker, they'll turn it on. I'm not seeing the evidence that they can easily go to that next gear. That would be my concern at the minute in terms of Wigan is, I know they can get there, they've done it countless times, but getting there doesn't look as easy. It looks like they're spluttering a little bit as they try and shift the gears.
Yeah, okay, that's a fair comment. They probably have a little bit more work to do than the usual to get up to those gears. But it was the same last year. I think they've lost 2 more at the same stage last year, and that we've only really highlighted that because of Hull KR's rise and how good they've been.
Yeah.
Now, they've been below par. There's some players that aren't performing at their best, but we've got many weeks to go where they will switch it on. I mean, they were the Grand Slam champions last year. They won 4 trophies, and it's the same squad. And Matt Pete talks about the continuous learning process, and that's paid them well so far. So I don't think I'm not personally doubting that they can switch it on just yet. Yes, they might have a bit more work to do than previously, but last year they had the same dip where they lost to Leeds, Hull FC, and Warrington.
Smails, are you tipping against them to make the grand final then?
No.
Oh, right.
But they're currently still second in the table anyway.
So you're playing devil's advocate then?
No, they're second in the table. No,
Rich from you who says, yeah, Leigh are good, Leeds are good.
Well, no, because they're not playing great, but they've still only lost 2. And even when they're not playing great, they're still finding a way to get over the line in some games. They do need to be better. I'm sure they can get there.
Yes.
But it might just be a little trickier path than it normally is what I'm saying. What gives me confidence they're still going to finish top 2 is I've written a piece actually for Tuesday morning.
Great piece.
You've done some work.
It's very, very rare that I get the quill out.
Well, everyone's going to have to read all that rugby league
to put something together, and I don't want any more awards for it. I've been there and done all that. No, I've written a very simple, easy piece. They're basically just looking at Wigan, Hull KR, and Leeds, comparing the run-ins. And Wigan have got the easiest on paper run-in out of 3. Hull Kingston Rovers have got the hardest, but also key is Wigan have got 6 of the last 10 games at home. Leeds have only got 3. They've got 7 away games.
They have just won at Hull KR.
They have, but it's easier to win at home than it is to win on the road, unless you're Hull FC, which we're coming to. So just all the evidence points that I see Wigan in the top 2, and surely you two still see them in the top 2.
Yeah, as much as I'm I've been a big advocate for Leeds all season. Wigan for me, even now, are the team to beat.
But
this is how Matt, is when I start at the start of this episode where I say Matt's right. This is how he does it because now so far he's backed Wigan, he's backed Leeds, he's backed Leigh. One of them's going to do well.
I have just
and
said.
At the end of the year, he'll go Josh.
I have just
statement.
said. I've just said. I said at the start of the season, Leeds had finished third. I've said all season Wigan are the team to beat, and I'm still saying it now.
And you've just said that Leigh could make a grand final.
They could make a grand final,
but then you wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. So you just.
I'm telling
Anyway.
you. I'm saying if you wanted me to put my cards on the table, I still think it will be a Wigan Hull KR grand final.
I was going to say, while he's not mentioned Hull KR, he is wearing his Hull KR boxer shorts today again.
Why are you feeding into this conspiracy?
Because I love it. Because we all know it's nonsense, but people out there just
you've done a great... Yeah, but what you don't realise is people are going to just clip that 4 seconds and not the bit about the nonsense.
That's fine.
So thanks, Mel.
I'm happy with that.
I'm going to have to learn a ratio, aren't I? Let's move on a little. Just follow me in this list here. St Helens, Castleford, Wigan, Hull KR again, Leigh, Wigan, Catalan, Salford, Castleford, London, St Helens. What am I talking about? Hull FC at home.
Yeah.
Hull FC at home. It's next week. It's a calendar year since their last won at home. That was a 24-22 victory against Wigan, of all people.
Which is crazy, isn't it?
Which is crazy in a season where they couldn't buy a win.
Yeah.
But they've been so good at times this season. Some of the victories on the road been really impressive. We sat here maybe 2-3 weeks ago and I said, when they play well, I really like the look of this team. I really like what they can do. They're not top 4, but...
No, but you said top 6.
Yep, I genuinely think they are. When they're on it, they're a top 6 team.
But did we not have this conversation a few weeks back where I said I don't think they're a top 6 team because they can also perform like a bottom 3 team still?
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
That is the problem.
That's the problem.
Then the week after he said, I wouldn't be surprised if Hull made top 6.
I did not say that.
I love this, Josh. I love it.
Where's Josh? Who gave Josh a license to dish it out? Get off.
Once in a while.
But where I'm at with the home form is just... I don't know. I don't know where to go with it. I can't explain it.
Well, let's go through the list starting this season because last year were just a write-off.
This season
they got hammered by Wigan.
They've lost. Actually, if you look at it this season,
right,
they've lost to Wigan twice, Hull KR twice. One of them was in the cup. They've drawn with Leigh, and they've lost to St Helens and Castleford. So Castleford is the only game, and they will have started as favourites.
This is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah,
I don't think it obviously becomes a story because the stat is just one of those that we're all going to jump on. But have they been that bad at home this year? I saw them play Hull KR in both derbies and I thought they played all right, particularly in one of them. I'm getting the two mixed up, but they played well in one of the cup games.
I think the cup game they played better than the league game from memory. I've probably got it wrong way around.
They played fairly well in both. Wigan absolutely schooled them round 2, but Wigan are capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Who else have they lost to?
St Helens at the weekend.
Right, that was a poor game.
And Castleford.
They were terrible against Cass.
They were really bad.
So yes, the start. Performance-wise, have they been that bad at home? The last 2, they've been poor. But I would say that they have been playing poor for about a month. So I don't think it's a home thing. Because they played poor away at Wire.
Yeah.
And there was another game.
And you're just putting last season down to the fact that
they were just genuinely dreadful.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they won 3 games all season.
Yeah.
They beat London at home in the last minute, didn't they? Right at the start. They beat Wigan at home. Who knows how that happened? And I can't even remember what the other game they won was. They won 3. But yeah.
I actually agree with you. Having played devil's advocate a little bit there, I actually agree with you that they've had some really tough games this season. What I would be concerned about is that psychologically that gets in the head of the players that we haven't won at home and they just need to win one. I think once they've won one, I think they'll be okay. Now, the tricky thing is they've got some tough games. I mean, they've got Wakefield at home this weekend. Wakefield have had some really good wins on the road as well. We'll have to see. But you don't think John Carver is going to be too concerned?
I think he'll just be concerned with how they're playing.
Yeah.
Forget the home away thing. I don't think they've played well since they beat Leigh.
Well,
we're looking at about a month now of poor performances, which coincide with they beat Catalans, didn't they? But they've lost John Asiata and they've lost Will Price, and to me it just looks like they've completely lost the way.
That's what I was about to say. There's a correlation there between losing those two players and the performances dipping.
Oh, massively.
Which isn't unusual when you lose your 1 and your 13. Your spine
exactly,
players.
yeah.
Yeah, especially the way Asiata plays in that side as well, the role that he brings.
And you know, the same happened at Leigh when they lost Asiata last year. So, yeah, I'm not reading too much into the home form this particular year. But I am worried for their season at this point because there's not really been any evidence of them capable of playing well without those two players on the field.
Okay. Let's rattle through a few bits in the time that we've got left. Warrington in for Nenny McDonald. Talk to me.
Yeah, so it's a funny one, this, because Salford, he's still a Salford player. He's on unpaid leave. If you remember, he went back to Australia for the birth of his child, came back, and then with everything going on, he's taken unpaid leave. So he's technically still contracted. So Warrington have made an approach. I don't think Salford are particularly keen on the idea, to be honest, but Warrington are looking for an outside back. Sam Burgess has been playing down for a while now about signing externally, hasn't he? But they went in for Taylor May. They're in for Nenny McDonald now. It's quite clear that they need an outside back with Matty Ashton out for the season. And they need a centre for next year anyway. So watch this space, moving parts. The injury to Rod Tye will probably really accelerate Warrington's need to try and push that through.
Yeah, they are struggling with injuries at the minute. Let's stick on the transfer front. Obviously, we broke on All Out Rugby League. I like saying we. It was your story, but...
Team effort.
Yeah, team effort. And
well done, Josh.
I'm going to take credit for it as well. That Luke Carey was leaving Cartland Dragons. You followed that
I
up.
thought he was going to say something that was wrong.
No. You followed that up with the news that Toby Sexton was signing for Cartland Dragons, which we also broke as an exclusive, although it was kind of our friends in Australia to just ignore the fact that we'd reported
let's be right. All of his colleagues around the globe decided to credit them rather than us, but
we're not bitter.
All right.
Generally, we're not. Yeah,
for that.
I have got a point with this. So, Cartland trying to replace, Carey and getting that done sooner rather than later. But the head coach thing's the one that they need to sort out, don't they?
I wonder if they've got it sorted and we don't know. They're really aggressive in the market at the minute. I mean, probably because they have to be, whether they've got a coach or not, because halves are it's a surprise that Toby Sexton is available when the NRL keep talking about a lack of halfbacks. Now, I do have a few reservations in that he's been on the market, he's been playing for the team who's been top of the NRL for most of the season, and yet no one made a move for him. Am I overthinking that? But it just seems a bit odd.
I don't think you're overthinking it, no.
Especially, as you say, in the NRL market. What I will say is...
Go on. Sorry, I was just going to say on Kiri. I know the comp's rubbish and lousy, but he hasn't been able to whack it, has he? So at the end of the day, Sexton's probably a step up. And in all seriousness, it's not all Kiri's fault. I think the club is just, or the squad's completely disengaged and disattached from one another.
As to be fair, I think we were reporting months ago and was denied and told.
People deny a lot of things I say, Smalesy, but it tends to be true, as you know.
Honestly,
my ego's...
You're generally not going to get out the room the way things are going.
But we did, and we were shot down.
Yeah.
And I said to you, because we were like...
viciously shot
and down. I was like, we're right. I know we're right.
Yeah.
And you've now got the current head coach talking about it.
Yeah.
They need a complete overhaul, and that's what they're doing.
Just finally wrapping up, disciplinary. Reece Martin gets off, Liam Horn gets 6 games for them incidents. Sparked, big conversations, a little bit of outrage. Josh finishes off by trying to explain that one.
I don't know, can you? we could probably do a whole episode trying to explain it. I mean, all we want is a bit of consistency. The fact that Cade Ellis wrote in and said, look, I wasn't injured, I was playing down to the time, and Liam Horn still picks up a 6-match ban. I mean, we just ask for consistency. And most of all, we just want our star players on the field. Otherwise, it reduces the quality of the game, and it means we're talking about stuff like this. This makes the headlines rather than what's happening on the field. Yeah, a bit of consistency and a bit of common sense. I don't think it should be a 6-game ban. I think it's
consistency bizarre. And common sense. It's almost like the mantra of this podcast.
RFL compliance are on some wild power trip at the minute. I've no idea what's going on, and I was hoping I could firm this up and probably get myself covered and talk about it in more detail. But Salford's hearing into the round 1 stuff. We're bringing the game into disrepute that's this week. And if what I'm hearing is true on what RFL compliance have suggested should be the punishment, it'd be an absolute shambles if it came through. I can't say more because I don't 100%.
Because we've had that conversation, and
but it'll
off.
Literally be outrageous.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on with RFL compliance at the minute.
Let's wait and see. But if it does come to fruition, it's certainly something to get stuck into next week. And just finally bringing me on to next week, we will have some rather sizable news next Monday. I don't want to say anything else on that at the minute, but look out for some news dropping next Monday. We'll be back later in the week with our prediction show, as always, where once again Matt's going to struggle to get any predictions right, but he'll tell you he's got them all right. Until then, say no more. On behalf of myself and Josh, thanks for being with us. Matthew?
Yeah, and above all else, enjoy rugby league. Take care.
All right.